Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review episode 8 of What If. So, there's something honestly that is bugging me about this episode, because I honestly don't buy Vision as this, completely unstoppable character, absurdly so. Because in all honesty, and it doesn't matter that it's like, well, it's a different kind of Vision. It's the Ultron Vision. Like, I'm sorry, but has anybody been catching up on WandaVision, where all of a sudden all it took is just Vision swallowing a thing of gum to slow him down in one episode? Like, this character is never quite been all that strong in live action ways about going into things. The comic books made this character absurdly strong, but in a live action sense, which is what that this show pulls from, I'm like, dude, like he has like difficulties fighting off like a Proxima Midnight and Corvus Grave. Like, how is he going to just be easily able to take on larger threats that just don't quite make sense to me? But again, you have to say this time around, it is Vision Ultron. It's not just straight up just Vision. And Vision is a much. Vision Ultron is, I guess, a much more credible threat because eventually this character is to come up with a number of seemingly unlimited minions to go and fight at his disposal in this episode. So I really like the fact that they ended up kind of like Vision kind of wipes out everything. Really just goes on and is to not just like take down just Earth. He ends up going everywhere that seems to have been some kind of threat or whichever. Because I know there's a lot of people like, excuse me, but you guys already created this one other threat in this other episode. So why isn't it that this is to all of a sudden have happened? Or why isn't this person to beat said thing? And also, I think a lot of people are just going to go through this episode and say something about how exactly that so and so thing could have easily Vision Ultron could have easily killed any number of things. Like, how is it that Vision Ultron like beat Odin and all kinds of stuff, and like Vision never went toe to toe with Galactus. Did he? No. Like, so he didn't really create peace in our time because he didn't go off and beat Galactus in this episode. Oh, they couldn't have showed Galactus in this episode? Are they going to do a what if about Galactus? If Galactus ate the world or something? Or, like, if Galactus just came in and just destroyed Earth? What would they do? Oh no. Silver Surfer would just probably team up with Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Like, that would probably be a thing that happens. That's what I'm hoping happens in a live action movie, that eventually Galactus goes on and tries to take off or try to kill one of the Guardians of the Galaxy planets, probably Earth, I hope. And then Silver Surfer kind of like helps the Guardians, or maybe it'll be nowhere, or maybe it'll be some other planet that eventually they go and take over or take down or whatever. Maybe it'll be maybe they rebuild Xandar. I don't know. Anyways, but yeah. So speaking of Xandar, why is it that we kind of have to keep going to the same well about things? It seems like whenever there is to just be like seemingly a character that has to be used way too often, it's either like seemingly it seems like they end up going to the same roster of people where it's like, hey, like, who is seemingly going to be a threat to anybody? I guess Captain Marvel. Like, oh, like, but who is eventually going to be our last hope? Well, it probably has to be like Hawkeye has to be in there somewhere, right? Um, but we also have like the Black Widow reference from her movie, which I really did enjoy. Like I'm kind of tiptoeing my way into almost spoilers about this because like we're at a point now where I can almost just go into spoilers justifiably because like I kind of notched down that it's like this episode feels somehow inaccurate to me, but then again there are a lot of people with a lot more knowledge of which that I have. But yeah, so going into this episode, I would say that I enjoyed it because again, felt it felt like a very interesting episode, and again, it didn't feel like we were copying and pasting completely from a film, and that's the thing that I enjoyed about it. But I was still just like, well, why isn't Galactus in this show? Like, they can play with that character. Why aren't they using him here? Because what would happen if Vision Ultron had to go up against Galactus? Would he still win? People will be bothered by that. Believe me, I'm sure somebody's gonna have a problem with this episode, and they are obviously going to question if Vision Ultron can beat any number of things that are to eventually like will uh will Vision Ultron beat the Living Tribunal or something like that, the most powerful being in the Marvel universe. But we also seem to actually have the Watcher actually do more than just stand by and watch people just do a thing. I thought it was really interesting the Easter egg that we got for this episode that has something to do with Captain America. Let's just say America. So, and that actually was from a actual what if thing, and I'll talk about that when we get into spoilers. So yeah, I'm kind of tired of Hawkeye, kind of tired of Black Widow. Uh, like I don't really care all that much for Vision. But anyways, so most of this episode just ties mostly into Age of Ultron, and then after that, it's just basically like uh, really just Vision Ultron just blowing up a lot of stuff. But there's still a lot of things where I'm just like, but what if? Like they still didn't cover everything, even though supposedly it seemed that that Ultron Vision was to supposedly wipe out every. I don't see 100% proof of that, and so maybe that'll be the next episode because a lot of people will be griping about like, where's Galactus in here? Where is like the biggest possible threats besides just these certain things put into this episode. So, with that said, let's go into that double five because it's about that time to go into this thing called spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time you do spoil this movie, or really just this episode because it's a show. So, my apologies. I always have to like ridicule myself because I always forget that this is a show. Uh, because a lot of times I always say movie because they do more movies than shows. Anyways, pushing on. So, this is to be, of course, a reference from Age of Ultron, and this is to have said, what if Ultron were to have inserted himself into Vision and become Ultron Vision? Which I think they should have came up with one singular name for both of those things because everybody's just going to call him Vision Ultron or Ultron Vision. Maybe we should call him Ultra Vision. No, that's basically the same thing. Ultra, like it's not one singular name. Mega Vision, Ultra Vision. It's going to be Ultra Vision, I guess. Let's go with Ultra Vision. I guess that'll work. Uh, even I Ultron Vision. We'll stick with that. We'll just go with that. So, uh, so funny enough, so we end up having Thanos, who ends up arriving to go up against Ultron Vision, and we easily have it where Ultron Vision just uses his Mind Stone and kills Thanos easily. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, Thanos has like 4 Infinity Stones in his gauntlet, and Vision, like, quickly wipes him out. I don't buy that whatsoever. Like, there should have been a much more of a fight going on in this episode between these two behemoths. I can't just buy that Vision Ultron wipes Thanos out because I guess maybe he's just more intelligent or smarter than I guess Thor, who didn't go for the head, or any number of people that eventually made a mistake, like Ant-Man eventually not going through the butt of Thanos. Why was that a thing? Why did they make that a thing? I don't know why questions were to be made. I bet somebody is eventually just, what if Ant-Man did go up the butt of Thanos? That's going to be a what if episode. What if Ant-Man had killed Thanos before he had done the snap? Like, gone up the butt and just grew out and freaking, like, killed Thanos that way. Or what if Thor did go for the head and did kill Thanos? Would eventually Thor go and get all the Infinity Stones and him become... No. Probably, like, it'd probably just, like, be like, yay, great. Like, I don't feel anybody is going to be, like, clutching to eventually get the Infinity Stones for whatever reason. But anyways, so let's get back to this episode. So Vision is to just go on and supposedly wipe out some important things. So Vision is to easily nuke Earth, with the exclusion of seemingly Hawkeye and Black Widow, I guess, who are kind of up in the air with a Quinjet or whatever. So it seems like they're going to be unaffected by this whole thing, this whole situation. And so Vision Ultron nukes Earth, and so then he ends up going off to go to several other planets that seem to may be a threat, but kind of once you wipe out the Avengers and kind of once you wipe out Earth, there really is no real threat anywhere. Like, there really isn't. Vision Ultron went to Ego, the planet, and wiped that out. Basically, just made sure, like, but like Ego wasn't really a threat anyways in all actuality. Like, the dude has to stay on his planet to really just like have that usage of power and whichever. Uh Vision Ultron eventually goes to Solarian, to eventually go after the Guardians of the Galaxy, and I guess they are to be at the planet where they were in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 in the beginning of that, I guess is where they were at, I'm assuming or assessing. And Vision Ultron wipes all the Guardians of the Galaxy out, like, pretty easily. Like, that should be an easy... That should be, like, a no-brainer to just wipe those people out, in all honesty. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy, like, they need to come up with something to help those cats out to really just make them, like, actually viable characters. But I think what's really going to end up happening is, like, they're going to only do one more Guardians of the Galaxy film and then just wrap that up, because I guess there's a lot of just people in the Guardians that are just like, dude, I'm just not, like, I think a lot of them are just going their own separate ways, and eventually, like, there's some people that are just probably going to get incorporated in some other part of the MCU. Like, I'm assuming Gamora might still do some projects. I think Chris Pratt is probably just done, especially after that whole, like, Endgame thing where a lot of people were blaming him for all that. Uh, Dave is done with Drax. Like, I'm sure he's just gonna have maybe someone else do the role, and then of course you just got Groot and Rocket that can just eventually be with Thor if they aren't gonna die in Volume 3. So they might as well just kill off the entire Guardians of the Galaxy in all one fell swoop. Just wipe them all out like they did here. So uh, Ultron Vision ends up going to Xandar, which technically, I'm sorry, Thanos had already wiped out Xandar, but Ultron Vision is going to Xandar and wiping that out? Because supposedly Thanos had gone on to get the Infinity Stone from Xandar. He ended up getting the uh not the Tesseract, but or the one stone, but he ended up getting uh he ended up getting the one stone from Xandar. So cuz he has 4 of them. So I don't know what Thanos did at Xandar, but evidently he didn't wipe the planet out. So Vision went on to go and wipe out that planet. And so he ends up pretty much wiping out the Nova Corps because Nova Corps is honestly just pushovers. Like, I'm waiting for a Nova movie to justify those characters again, to really seem like they are important and they are a real threat, because they seem just like pushovers in the MCU. So, uh, anyways, all of a sudden Captain Marvel appears, and I'm like, oh my god, here we go again. Like, I'm sorry, can we have, like, somebody else that is seemed to be a character that can take down some folks that doesn't have to be Captain Marvel for the second time in the What If series? Like, and also, we still, like, I'm still just frustrated because I'm like, Thor is strongest there is. Really? I'm like, why do we have to have Captain Marvel every single episode? I don't like Captain Marvel on top of the fact, and them just introducing this character so heavily just because it's like, well, like, she's the only real legitimate, like, thing that is to just say that, like, what are they trying to desperately boost, like, freaking Captain Marvel viewings? Because that's what it seems like that's what this is possibly doing, to now have to forcibly justify people to have to forcibly see Captain Marvel and just immediately say that it's like, yeah, that movie wasn't worth watching, and it's really an origin story that doesn't need to be done. But hey, cool 90s stuff though, right? So, uh, so we eventually have Captain Marvel that makes a movie reference, which I did actually enjoy. But then we end up having Captain Marvel that ends up kind of just shoving seemingly Ultron Vision into the center of Xandar, the center of Earth of Xandar, and but eventually, of course, Vision Ultron goes and wipes even Captain Marvel out, and so I hope that I've kind of covered all the things that Vision has wiped off the face of the Earth besides Galactus. They need to do a Galactus episode. They need to cover the. They need to cover this character because they have the rights for said character. So everybody is going to be so bothered about. I'm already doing it. I'm already bothered by it. But whatever. It's whatever. And a lot of people would probably just tell me, like, oh, Galactus is not that powerful. Vision Ultron will wipe him out too. If he can wipe out some planets, he can wipe out Galactus. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe, like, Galactus will just catch, like, Vision Ultron off guard. Like, I guess that Vision had just caught off Thanos off guard. to where he just blasts him in half. Jeez. My apologies. Let me pause here for a second. Man, do I love it where, like, you make a payment for something and then, like, the people have to text you saying, like, oh, thanks for making the payment that you did. Like, I know it's kind of a receipt or a confirmation, but still, like, you could email me for that. Like, I don't have to get a text for whatever reason. Like, it's not really that important. You can send me an email. Like, I don't want the text of it. Like, F that. That's what went off there. So, anyways, pushing on. So, Vision wipes out Xandar and basically everything else that he could possibly wipe out. And so he's like, okay, well, finally I've created peace in our time. But then all of a sudden we end up having both Clint and Natasha, who are just these stubborn people that are to be on Earth, and so they're scouring the planet to try to figure out like how they can beat Ultron Vision. And so we end up having these characters that that go on to try and figure out how they can beat Ultron Vision. So they go on and they are to consistently be like freaking taken down by these Ultron bots, but they end up going and because like Black Widow is like riding this motorcycle, and she's like, yeah, we gotta make it to this one place to eventually kind of ward off all these little Ultron Vision things, whatever, the little minion guys. So what ends up happening is that both Black Widow and Hawkeye go, and we end up finding out that Hawkeye is like basically like Winter Soldier. He has like one like robot arm, and I'm like, man, what if we would have had like Bucky's arm on Hawkeye, and maybe we would have had like a spot where like Hawkeye would have had like his own variation of like a Captain Marvel shield or something like that. Oh, we also had Ultron Vision wipe out Sakaar for whatever reason. I'm sorry, Hulk is not there. Thor is not there. What champion really is there to wipe out at Sakaar? Like, I don't see Sakaar as all that grandiose of a threat. Like Ultron Vision also wipes out Asgard, which I'm like, Odin though, like how powerful is Odin? Shouldn't have Odin like did Vision Ultron just run the gambit and coincidentally Odin was going through the Odin sleep coincidentally while Asgard was to be wiped out? How can anybody just not refute any kind of something about Vision Ultron eventually having a battle with somebody instead of him just quickly with a snap of his fingers kind of just wiping everything out and not having someone to fight at any second of time? But I guess that's just me. I want, like, God, like, they should have done Galactus. It's bothering me. I wanted to see like Vision Ultron fighting like the Living Tribunal, that is supposedly the most powerful character, and see if he would have beat him. But so what eventually ends up happening is that since Vision Ultron has wiped out any possible threat to eventually create peace in our time, like Tony Stark was to tell us, Vision all of a sudden was to become like so. Vision Ultron was to become so powerful that he could even hear the Watcher going and doing some dialogue. Um, but it was also kind of funny the very beginning of this episode where we're reasonably like the Watcher was mentioning how like this is like a heartbreaking kind of story. How basically all of the good guys really just lose pretty much. Because like Thanos kind of gave uh, like just enough people to eventually have that avenge kind of story to get back at Thanos, where like Vision Ultron pretty much wiped out everything with the exclusion of Clint, Natasha, and Zola, evidently. But we're gonna get to that. So eventually, what ends up happening is Vision Ultron ends up spotting Watcher watching him, and so all of a sudden, Vision Ultron is to just kind of look and into the Watcher, and so the Watcher ends up kind of like kind of like going away and is like, oh God, like this guy is so powerful that he can even see me doing my thing, and so then eventually Vision Ultron eventually cracks through the multiverse and is now to go and fight the Watcher, and so Watcher is now having to put on his Watcher armor and try to take down Vision Ultron, and there's a lot of this like back and forth going on, and you end up seeing like these two fighting, and they're fighting through multiple different multiverses, which was freaking amazing. You end up seeing one world where Steve Rogers became the president. I'm like, yeah, like I remember, of course, watching a What If story. I remember watching, that doesn't sound right. I remember reading a What If story where Captain America became president. And I was naturally assuming that they were going to do an episode like that because it basically is to copy and paste another kind of just what if story. But they kind of do it as an Easter egg in this episode, which I thoroughly did enjoy. Because we're naturally assuming that they're eventually going to go that route with the MCU if really just Steve didn't go the way that he did. But anyways, it was kind of nice to have Steve Rogers eventually becoming a president in this episode, even if it was just an Easter egg. I thought it was fun. So going on here, so eventually, like Vision Ultron is saying, like, you know what, you're like Watcher, you're finally getting your hands dirty, like aren't you just more happy that you're actually getting your hands dirty, that you're actually wanting to be involved in the fate of any universe? And so what ends up happening is that both uh, both Hawkeye and Natasha are to go to this like KGB kind of records of things to eventually try and figure out what thing could possibly be a threat for Vision Ultron. And so Natasha ends up stumbling upon the Red Guardian, like Captain America kind of shield. And so like I was expecting like, okay, let's get like a ton of Easter eggs in here then. Like let's get just a bunch of stuff that we weren't expecting for people to find in here, but they didn't. All they found was the Red Guardian shield. And just like, oh yeah, well Natasha's like holding her dad's shield. What difference does that make? But whatever. It's just a cool little Easter egg thing that they are to have because of the whole Black Widow movie. Spoilers for anybody that hasn't seen Black Widow yet. It's been out for a while, and it's been on Disney Plus for a while. People could have gotten and watched. I had it like rented onto Disney Plus, and like hence somebody got sued because of that. But oh well, it wasn't my money that ended up getting, like, I didn't get sued by anybody, so it works for me. Anyways, uh, it's Disney's fault. Anyways, pushing on. So, you know what it would have actually been funny if uh, Vision Ultron would have gone through and fought the Watcher in the Mickey Mouse universe. That would have actually been funny if all of a sudden, like, we have Watcher and Vision Ultron fighting, like, and like it's like right in front of like Mickey Mouse's house, and Pluto is like watching this whole battle going on, and like, huh? Like, that would have been funny, and Goofy would have been like, gosh. Because technically the Marvel and Disney world should technically be one and the same, but whatever. So what ends up happening is that Clint and Natasha eventually are thumbing through records to eventually find and remember about Zola. And Natasha is like, well, yeah, like when she was in the Winter Soldier movie, she ended up going and seeing Zola before, and supposedly that base had blown up. But now that we're in like this spot, it seemed that they ended up taking Zola and transferring him, I guess, to the Baron Zemo base from Civil War. I'm like, how is it that all these things have technically still happened? But whatever, I guess, right? So Zola evidently had been into the Baron Zemo base and is the last connection for this character to just stay here. And so Natasha and Clint are to go and USB download Zemo from the last ditch computer that he's in, to eventually have Clint just kind of arrow any number of the Ultron bots to download Zemo into one of the Ultron bots. So now they're kind of like having uh, Zemo kind of in this one Ultron bot, and so they're kind of having like this door kind of holding up all these uh, Ultron minions, and so Zola is trying to reach uh, Vision Ultron to try and take control of him, but they run into a problem that evidently Vision Ultron isn't in this universe, so they can't go, like, Zola can't go and control him and take over him because he's not even here. It's like, you've got to be kidding me. So it ends up that that both Natasha, Clint, and Zola are having to get the heck out of there because the Ultron bots are coming through and they're breaking through. So what ends up having to forcibly happen is Natasha is to have the Zola bot and to get out of this place and to hop through this spot here. And so Clint is to go on and make his last stand and to go and use up most of his arrows to take all these Ultron bots down, then to have one last arrow that is to be this like nuke of a arrow that goes and wipes out all these bots to give Natasha a chance to uh, be able to do what she needs to do. Which I'm like, wait a minute. So if Natasha is the last woman of planet Earth, that means like she's not going to be able to produce a baby, because how is she going to be able to? But we also have to just be like, well, wait a minute, there's also an ending to this episode also. So what ends up happening after like the Watcher is kind of like getting his butt kicked by Vision Ultron is he is to finally decide that now he wants to finally like break his own rule and is to tell now Doctor Strange that was imprisoned from episodes before where he was seemingly this unlimited power of person, but he still could not bring back his one true love uh, to seemingly have her live forever in his arms, but she fades away instead. Now, like, it's going to be Doctor Strange with his unlimited power against Ultron Vision, and we'll see how that all plays out. So I'm going to get out of here because I know how long this episode is, and I know how long that I talk for. So I'm going to get the heck out of here. This should be really interesting to eventually see if they conclude this or play this all out or whatever. But anyways, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody. I hope I said everything about this episode, but there might have been a detail or two that I probably didn't go fully into. So, and that's always a thing that I always have to apologize about because there's going to be somebody like, hey, you forgot about this. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.